so I got something a little different to work on here today in the AMR Power Sports shop. I have this KTM 450. There's kind of a sad story with this bike. It belongs to a friend of mine. He recently, and by recent I mean within a couple months, had the whole motor rebuilt for around $5,000. Now, unfortunately for him, he wasn't paying attention. He thinks he ran it out of oil or ran it awful low on oil. And now this thing smokes like crazy. At idle, riding, it just bellows out the smoke. So although I don't have a lot of experience with dirt bikes, it's a modern 4-stroke motor. I know these KTMs are kind of a pain, I guess, to work on. But because he's a friend of mine, I told him I would look into it. Although I really don't prefer to work on dirt bikes, I don't have much experience riding them. And in my opinion, if you don't have any experience with what you're working on, then how are you gonna know if it's running right, if it's not running right? But he understands that. He was fine with me taking a look at this. He trusts my work. So we're digging into it. I already took the gas tank and the side panels off because I wanted to look. And I pulled the plug, looked down with my scope, but there is such a short stroke in here and that piston is so massive, I really couldn't see anything. It didn't look awful in there. I mean, there was an awful lot of carbon buildup on top of our pistons, which if it's smoking, there's oil getting past somehow, so that makes sense. I could see the marks from honing, and it looked good, but I could really only see one little area. So we're hoping that just starving it of oil a little bit just overheated the valve seals, and maybe one of them went bad and is not sealed anymore. So I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna just pull the head off so we can look down in the cylinder a little better. There's not much to these bikes, so it's actually gonna be pretty easy to get at stuff. I'll probably go ahead and take the radiators off just to give me a little bit easier access. Pull the carb, and we'll get to pulling the head. So I guess the real question is, can I get these little radiators off without making a big, huge mess? I'm gonna guess probably not. That just looks like regular water in that. No antifreeze. Well, at least I'm catching most of it. There, she puked her. There was some thought and design went into this radiator hose. Oh, I forgot about the one on the bottom. Oh, that almost went down my drain hole. Alright, managed to catch most of it. The nice thing about your father-in-law running sawmills, you've got lots of spill cleanup sawdust to use. Oh, old man chair. Oh, me old knees. Radiator number 2. I don't know who did the rebuild on this. They sure left a lot of fasteners. Like both sides of these radiators were held on by one screw apiece. That might have been all that was with it when they rebuilt it. And the owner may not want to spend a little extra money to get the extra fasteners, but if it was me, I'd get the other screws and rubber grommets to attach these radiators nice and secure. But hey, that's just me. Well, the exhaust side looks good and clean. Go. And we'll carefully set this up here. Perfect. There we go. Well, once you get down to the meat and potatoes of it, the engine's really quite small. You think, wow, 450, big, powerful dirt bike motor, and it's like, itty bitty space. Alright, my battery's about to die here, so we'll catch back up with you guys once I get this head off and we can see what stuff looks like in there. Well, as you can see, we've got the cylinder all off of the KTM here. I did go ahead and jumped in. I got excited and honed the cylinder without showing what it was like beforehand. But here's the cylinder. I got it all cleaned up. As you can see, it's looking pretty good. I did take pictures of what the cylinder looked like before I honed it though, so I could send to the owner. So I'll put those up right now. So it wasn't awful, but there were definitely some ring grooves in there. I couldn't really catch them with my fingernail by hand, so they weren't awful. Were they enough to let the oil seep through? It's possible. I'm thinking the most likelihood of what happened is he overheated it and burned his valve seals out. That would be my initial thoughts anyway, but again, as clean as it looks here in our head, I'm not sure if that's actually what was going on or not. And the scoring that was in here, though it didn't see much more than typical piston ring wear, it could have been enough. I mean, it was definitely noticeable, as you can tell from the pictures I posted. So that's where we stand at the KTM. I'll get the head all cleaned up, and then hopefully the gaskets will be here that we can start putting everything back together before I forget where all this stuff goes. Alright, so we got everything cleaned up here for the KTM. I already got my new piston rings in there and the piston back in place, ready to go back on. I got new valve seals in, everything's back together here at the head. And I got it all cleaned up, flapped the valves, it's good to go. You see all these marks here, well that was from a previous rebuild. Because the owner had already spent $5,000 not that long ago to have this rebuild, and then forgot to check the oil, and so ran it low. Thus, we're honing and replacing burned up piston rings. So, his lesson learned in his case. I'll go ahead and throw all this stuff back on the bike. I'll probably just put you guys in a time lapse to get through this quickly, and then we'll see if she'll fire. Topped off the coolant. Let's see if I can get this bad boy to start. Choke. I don't know, guys. Alright, so it turns out I have my valve adjustment off a little bit on this guy. That's why it shut off there and I couldn't get started again. I readjusted them as it begins to pour. So we'll see how this guy does now. That's all she needed was a little valve adjustment. Now you guys are not going to get a test ride with this big guy because my experience on dirt bikes is very little and my experience on a big old 450 dirt bike is absolutely zero. It's not mine. I'm not going to take it out there and wreck it. So no test ride for this guy, but it's still enjoyable to work on and get me a little more experience working on dirt bikes. And we'll see you on the next buggy.